Jesse is in the house. Jesse, are you ready for some rapid fire?
Well, that's what I'm here for.
That's exactly right. This is a fast moving show with three different people in here with me today. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame adding Boise State today to its 2025 home football schedule is blank.
Is meh. Like if this were Boise State, like 15 years ago, I think this would push the needle a little bit for me. But Boise State, they're just an average program, right? And so like while it's fun to play a new opponent, this is the first time they've played each other. First time, obviously, Boise State is coming to Notre Dame Stadium. While I appreciate the diversity, I would just like to see, maybe a little uptick in a program. Like Boise State really doesn't move it for me. I maybe at least a Power 5 program. I don't know.
This is a little bit outside the box, I think, for me. And for Jesse and the meh, I feel like you've been hanging out with Vince a little bit too long. I mean, are you just going to go to the dark side right away? I kind of like this. I mean, they've played they're 32-6 all time against the Mountain West Conference. So it's not like they've never played the Mountain West Conference before, but they've never played Boise State before. And this is going to be the 90th FBS program of 134 now that they have played. I'm thinking exactly what Anthony is saying here. I would take Boise State over literally any school in the MAC for Notre Dame to play. And especially when you look at the fact that there's two MAC schools coming to town this season. I like this. At least, like you said, it's not the Boise State of 15 years ago, but it's still, there's a lot more name recognition in terms of any of the group of 5 teams that you could play. I think that this is at the top of the pecking order in terms of group of 5. So I like this. I like it a lot, actually.
I like what a lot of people are
and stick it in a sack.
I like what other people are saying. I do believe it's an upgrade over a MAC school. So at least it's, better than Toledo or Miami of Ohio or Northern Illinois. Again, to me, when you're going to announce opponent like this, I anticipate it to be a bigger name, especially at home. I like Notre Dame to play big games at home, meaningful games at home.
Here's the home schedule next year. Now you've got Texas A&M, Purdue, Boise State, USC, Navy, NC State, Syracuse. I think that's a lot better looking home schedule than what they've got this year.
Oh yeah, way better than this year. But I mean, I think a lot of that is carried by Texas A&M, USC, Syracuse,
NC State,
I guess.
I think Boise State, again, it's not Boise State from winning the Fiesta Bowl and, Statue of Liberty plays and proposals at the end of the game and all that stuff. But still,
Garrett Blunt punching someone.
There's at least a little name brand, I think, that goes along with Boise State. So I like it. David says that he is a Boise State alum, and he's glad that they're playing Notre Dame. He says he's been wanting this game so bad to shut people in Boise up. Go Irish. If I don't go to the game, I'll start a fund me for ball. Interesting. So he's a Boise State alum, but he's all in on Notre Dame. Okay. Yeah. NH, I agree. I think that's a pretty solid home schedule next year. I think it looks a lot better than, like you said, it's propped up by Texas A&M and by USC, but at the same time, it still looks better than this year. Fill in the blank. Manti Te'o is on the College Football Hall of Fame 2025 ballot. The on-field moment that stands out the most from his career is blank.
I would say the 2 interception game against Michigan. I would say the goal line stand against Stanford. And then I would say, I believe the interception against Oklahoma that
to seal the Oklahoma.
Yeah. To seal the Oklahoma game. So those would be my top 3. I don't know if I can put those in order because I again, having, 2 interceptions against your rival and essentially, sealing that game was incredible. To beat Oklahoma on the road, a ranked opponent, a top 10 opponent, that was a huge win. And then obviously if you lose the Stanford game at that point in the season, you're probably no longer a national champion contender. But, ultimately the entire senior season was just so impressive. 7 interceptions, all of it. He had over 100 tackles. And to me, the extraordinary part of that is he had 0 interceptions in his career leading up to that season. And all of a sudden he just pooped out 7 of them. Like that's, I don't understand how you do that. Like defensive backs can't even do that, let alone, a linebacker. And it's like, so,
exactly.
While the tackles for loss and sacks were a little bit down compared to, the season before, I would trade that in terms of turnovers, right? Getting your offense the ball, points off turnovers, etc. So I really think of that Michigan 2 interception game.
Oh, so that's what it came back to. Interesting, because you just rattled off his entire season when I asked you for a moment. Is he basically stealing every moment that I might possibly be able to come up with? I go to the 2 interception game against Michigan as well. I mean, Denard Robinson was cooked in that game, man. Like he had nothing and nowhere to go. Remember, it was rain soaked, and he throws 4 interceptions in that game. And, his leading receiver had 3 receptions that day. Te'o had 2 interceptions. He threw almost as many to Manti Te'o as his own leading receiver had in that game. And of course, it launched him into the Heisman conversation and the whole thing. And like you said, 7 interceptions after having none before, and also over 100 tackles that season. And, one, remember, like I'm glad that I specified on-field moment, because obviously, DK's already making his reference to the other stuff that happened that season. But awesome season. I'll be curious to see if Manti gets in. I mean, to be a middle linebacker and to end up at the New York Athletic Club on Heisman, in December, Heisman Trophy finalist, finishing as the runner-up to Johnny Manziel. I don't think we're going to see too many middle linebackers ever make it as far as Manti did. And of course, he won basically every major award that he was up for that year, with the exception of the Heisman. I should also mention Todd Light on the ballot as well for College Football Hall of Fame. You're a little bit too young to remember his playing days. Like he was still playing for the Rams and winning a Super Bowl for the Rams when you were a young puck, but I doubt that you even remember that. But great career Todd Light had as well. So hopefully at least one of those guys gets in. Both very, very deserving. Let me ask you this, though. Of the current players on Notre Dame's roster, who do you give the best chance to be in the College Football Hall of Fame one day?
So I did a little extra credit. I did 1 offense and 1 defense. On offense, I'm just gonna have to say Charles Jagasaw, because I'm a fan of repetition and pattern, and what has Notre Dame been the best at producing as of recently? It's been offensive linemen. And so I believe that he's kind of the next one up. So I would go with Charles Jagasaw on offense. And then for defense is tough because they have a lot of guys. Like, I think you have to start young with these ones, right? Because, like I know Benjamin Morrison had a good first year, but I don't know if that translates into, College Football Hall of Fame. While Xavier Watts did have one good season, I guess what I'm saying is one good season doesn't get you in the College Football Hall of Fame. So it's really hard. Right. It's really hard to say some of these older upperclassmen are going to get there, because I think ultimately their time has really passed them. So I'm going to go with Drake Bowen as my other one, because I think you have to go with someone who has a long career ahead of them. And I think Drake Bowen, if he does well this year, could be a starter for 3, potentially 4 years. So those are my 2.
Right. And I should say the first requirement and the main requirement to get on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot is you have to have been a first-team All-American by, one of the selectors. And, that ultimately comprises the consensus All-American team. So you have to be at least a first-team All-American, which Xavier Watts would qualify for. And, he was a unanimous All-American last year. So he But he definitely has a leg up on anybody as of right now. I'm going to go like you're going with unproven talent, basically, and you're going with Jagasaw based on the track record the left tackle has, and I mean that's not a bad way to go. I think you play your odds by doing it that way. Like Joe Alt was just a first-team All-American. Well, he ended up in the College Football Hall of Fame. Like as a starting point right there. I'm going to go with C.J. Carr, though. I just, I think that we're all very excited about the career this guy is going to have. And I guess based on, again, like if you look at Notre Dame track records, the odds are against him, to end up with that first team All-American status, just based on history at Notre Dame. But we all think that this is a guy who is ultimately going to break the mold and just based on the micro results that we've seen from him in a spring game and over the course of his first spring practice, it's sure pretty promising. So I'll slide my chips to the CJ Carr side of the table. Xavier Watts, if he has anything close to the kind of season that he put up last year, this upcoming season, like if I'm going scale out of 1 to 10, I would slide him up probably to an 8.5 range. That in terms of his chances to ultimately end up in the College Football Hall of Fame. But I'm gonna go CJ Carr with all the upside that he's got.
Nice. I like that we had differing selections.
Yes. Benjamin Morrison is an interesting one, but again, you've got to be a first team All-American, so we all know how really good he is. Part of that comes with, so much of it is sort of, reputation, that you have developed. He's going into his junior season now after he was a freshman All-American a couple of years ago. Opportunities have so much to do with it as well. Is he going to have opportunities to make plays? I think that's the biggest thing for him. Like, can he rattle off some highlight reel type stuff? He's had a great career so far, and coming into his junior season now, a chance to kind of put a capper on that. Switch to the other Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm curious, how many current NFL quarterbacks do you think are going to end up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
This is tough. I say a comfortable answer is 3. A maximum answer is 5.
So let's go through it here. Patrick Mahomes, a definite, right?
Yes. That's
Aaron
one
Rodgers.
of my – yes.
Yep. Go ahead.
So I have Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers as like my 2 for sure. And I think Lamar Jackson ends up in the Hall of Fame as a 3rd. Those are like the ones I feel the most confident about. And then from there, I would probably say Russell Wilson and then either Josh Allen or Matt Stafford. But I don't think it's going to be Stafford. I would say Russell Wilson and Josh Allen are kind of my like next 2 maybe.
Joe Burrow? Where are you on Joe Burrow?
No, I don't think he's going to stay healthy long enough.
See, I've got Joe Burrow ahead of Josh Allen myself. Like, you can't lose that many AFC championship games.
Yeah, but look who you're losing to.
No, I know. But is he ever going to even get to a Super Bowl? That's the biggest thing, I think, that stands in Josh Allen's way, because Hall of Fame for the quarterback position, Hall of Fame and winning a Super Bowl are like they almost go hand in hand. You have to be so great and put up such big numbers, like a Dan Marino type guy, obviously, to get in the Hall of Fame without winning a Super Bowl. I think Matt Stafford is in, especially when you consider that he played the majority of his career on so many bad teams in Detroit and never had the opportunity. And then he finally goes to the Rams in that trade and gets the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson's going to be an interesting one. He's got to win a Super Bowl to get in, because I think of him the way you're talking about Joe Burrow. Can he stay healthy over the course of his career, the way he plays? I think he's got to win a Super Bowl relatively soon if he's ever going to have a chance.
Yeah, but the thing he's got on Joe Burrow, obviously he doesn't have the Super Bowls yet. He's already got 2 MVPs.
True. That's a leg up, but you're going to have to keep locking those up if you're not going to even get to the Super Bowl, let alone win a Super Bowl. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for him, but I think those MVPs will help. By the way, with Tom Brady retired, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, and one other quarterback are the only active Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. Do you know who the other one is?
Say the ones who do have it first.
Mahomes, Rodgers, Stafford, Russell Wilson, and then one other guy.
Don't tell me.
I won't. Don't look at the chat. Don't cheat. See if anybody gets it.
One more quarterback. I don't know. Who is it?
Joe Flacco. Andrew got it.
Is he still current, though? Is he on a roster this year?
Now, Nick Foles. I forgot about Nick Foles. Because I don't even know if Nick Foles is on a roster right now. That's why I forgot about him. But that's a great one, Ghost Deck. So there are actually two other. I assume Nick Foles, can't remember, did he finish the season with the Colts last year? I'm not even sure where Nick Foles was. Let me look this up here real quick. He was with the Colts last year. He is currently a free agent. So technically I was not wrong by not including him on that list. I'm sure he'll be someplace, but that's crazy. Russell Wilson was obviously on a Hall of Fame trajectory. And I have heard, after the whole move to Pittsburgh and the whole thing this offseason, I heard him still referred to as a future Hall of Famer. Do you think that he is a lock for the Hall of Fame? Like if his career ended today, is he a lock for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Russell Wilson?
I think you could have an entire debate about this question. I think that the only thing that holds Russell Wilson back is he doesn't have an MVP. While he does have a Super Bowl, and he probably, you could say he should have a second Super Bowl. His numbers do actually stack up well all time. But again, the no MVP is the part that really throws me.
And no MVP votes, I believe.
And so even in his best seasons, he's not considered, the best overall quarterback in the entire league. So for that reason, I'm going to have to say no.
I think he's on the bubble. I think he's going to ride it for a while to see if he is able to get in. I think it's going to take a little bit. And I think he's got more to prove. Like if he is able to do something in Pittsburgh within the next 3 years, and I'm talking about even get to a Super Bowl, that could sway me greatly, considering, again, how stacked the AFC is with all the great quarterbacks and Patrick Mahomes, along with including Patrick Mahomes. Like if he even gets to a Super Bowl where he is in the AFC, that would be saying something. So I think that as of right now, he is not. I think he's still got work that he's got to do. So I heard Brian talk about this in one of his shows. I listened to this show yesterday, and I think he and Ryan published it over the weekend. In the 2018 college football playoffs, the four quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, Ian Book. In 2020, the four quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Ian Book. So from a Notre Dame perspective, what does this say to you?
What this says to me is that Notre Dame essentially kind of outperforms their ceiling at the quarterback, because I think that those three quarterbacks in each playoff scenario were much better quarterbacks than Ian Book. And you can say, while Mac Jones had better talent around him, I think he ended up having at least a better shot at NFL career than Ian Book. We know Trevor Lawrence did. We know Kyler Murray did. Who else did you name on that list? Tua, we know that he's having a better NFL career. And while it didn't work out for Mac Jones and Justin Fields, I do believe that they are a more talented quarterback than what Ian Book ultimately was. And so for me, again, that shows that Notre Dame kind of outperformed their ceiling that season, really on the offense. And it ultimately kind of showed in those games, right? Because Ian Book wasn't enough as a difference maker.
Yeah, that's exactly it. What you finished with is the biggest thing. And that's what we were talking about earlier in this show with Ryan, the recruiting at the quarterback position and how important it is. Because look at all of those guys, every one of them. Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Tua, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. All of those guys, first-round NFL draft picks. And if Notre Dame is even close at the quarterback position to the kind of play that those teams got from their quarterbacks in those specific seasons, it's a lot different result for Notre Dame. And instead, they were lopsided losses for Notre Dame. And that's why where Notre Dame is right now, where they are recruiting at the quarterback position, this puts them much closer to there. And as Ryan said, the margin of error shrinks. So, or it gives you a bigger margin of error, basically, when you're competing against the elite teams on the schedule. And that's if Notre Dame wants to beat those teams and not just be on the same field with those teams, that's where this is going to make a difference, where they're recruiting right now at the position. Brent says, if Brock Purdy doesn't finish this season as a Super Bowl winning quarterback and a top 2 in MVP, I'll drop $100 super chat. Well, Brent, I will be glad to take your money. You don't have to put it in a super chat. You can just send it directly to me via Venmo. I can give you that at the end of the season, because like if you were going to ask me to wager against this, I would put the $100 against this happening, because I think it's like in the last 30 years or something like that, the team that lost the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots, the ones that lost to the Seahawks and then came back the next year, the team that lost the Super Bowl, getting back to the Super Bowl the next year, that is something that just historically has not happened in the NFL. So the odds are completely against them. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but the odds against San Francisco even getting back to the Super Bowl, let alone win a Super Bowl this year, vastly against them. So you can just send that directly to me if you want. You don't have to put it in a super chat, but I'll take your money.
I'm curious to see what improvements they make on the offensive line. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be out the door here soon. Ayuk's going to be your number one wide receiver. They just extended Christian McCaffrey and gave him some good guaranteed money. So I'm just kind of curious about how this San Francisco offense is all going to balance out, because I think that they have just a good amount of moving pieces offensively to feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. Andrew's asking, I assume he's talking about Braden Lindsay. Where is he now? Yeah, he is, as Tommy says, working in a corporate job. The last I heard, he was, I think, going to Indianapolis to take.
So I think Andrew Gilmore's point about asking about Lindsay was saying that was
on the Ian Book hype
top
train,
wide receiver.
basically.
And he's saying that if you gave Ian Book Alabama wide receivers, he obviously would have cooked a little bit differently. While I agree, but he still has to get the ball downfield. And those Alabama wide receivers have to get – they're going to be open downfield. I just don't know if Ian Book's actually going to get them the ball downfield.
Yeah.
You know what Tua did? He let that thing cut, and that's why he was so good. All he did was throw the – not all he did, but he was able to launch that cannon downfield, and he wasn't afraid to do it. Ian Book,
don't
you
forget,
can't say the same.
Who was on the bench behind Tua in 2018? Jalen Hurts was on the bench.
Right.
So, I mean, they had two NFL, and I think Mac Jones was still there. Yeah, Mac Jones was still there at that point as well. So you had three guys who were first-round draft picks on the roster. And if Ian Book had that kind of talent, then it doesn't matter who your wide receiver is. Like, if the quarterback has that kind of talent, he'll get whoever it is the ball in whatever window he needs to get them the ball. And that was not Ian Book. I'm sorry.
I mean, that was Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. What did Aaron Rodgers turned wide receivers good in Green Bay. He was never given good wide receivers to really work with.
Right. Absolutely. So we're going to start predicting some win totals for some different college teams. Michigan's the defending champ. They've got a season over/under of 9.5. You want to go through their schedule one at a time and make the prediction, or do you want me to just rattle off the whole schedule and then make a prediction that way?
We can go game by game.
Okay. Fresno, by the way, they play their first 5 games at Michigan Stadium. Fresno State.
Win.
W.
Yes.
Texas coming to town week 2.
Loss.
That's a big noon kickoff game. I agree. So they're 1-1 so far. Arkansas State.
Win.
Now here's where it gets interesting. Week 4, Big Ten opener, Michigan and USC at the Big House.
I think they win that one. That's my trade-off of Texas. I think they'll beat USC.
I do as well, because USC still has plenty of questions to answer from a defensive standpoint, as we were talking about earlier, offensive line, plus you've got, a new quarterback, obviously. So I will say that is a win as well. So at this point, Michigan is 3-1 heading into week 5 at home against Minnesota.
That's another win.
Okay. So that's 4-1, right?
Yes.
At Washington, week 6.
I think Washington is dropping off severely, so I think Michigan barely squeaks this one out.
I think so as well. I think that this is close. Both teams are obviously going to have new head coaches and new quarterbacks after meeting in the championship game last season. But I think that Michigan overall in better shape as a program. So that puts them at 5-1. Then they go to Illinois the next week. Any reason to think Illinois will knock off the Wolverines?
No.
6-1. Then they host Michigan State.
I think they win that game. I'm real hesitant on that one because I think Michigan State owes them one here soon. And I think they're going to get it when it's least expected. I have Michigan barely winning this game, like barely squeezing this game out. I think it's going to be really close.
Yeah, I think so as well. And Michigan State kind of creeping back into the picture in terms of where that rivalry is now after obviously a couple of down years. So that makes them, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That makes them 7-1 going into a home game against Oregon.
Loss.
I think so as well. I think the Ducks get this.
This is such a favorable schedule for them. They have so many home games in every big game.
USC and Oregon at home. Yeah.
And Texas.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely right. So now they are, I keep losing
7-2
where we are. 7-2 at this point. Okay. 7-2 with 3 games to go. At Indiana, that's a W.
Win.
Northwestern,
that's a win.
That's a W. And then they finish off at Ohio State.
That's a loss.
Yeah, I think the Buckeyes get this as well, and that puts them with a 9-3 record.
So here's my caveat. I think they are 9-3 is what I feel comfortable with, but I would not be surprised if they blow another Big Ten game between Minnesota, Michigan State, and maybe Northwestern. But I think they might find a way to lose another one of those Big Ten games.
I think so as well. I would not be shocked. Again, rookie head coach, as good as Sharon Moore did in the relief appearances last season, first-year head coach. I think that we can probably expect some kind of first-year slip-up from Sharon Moore, especially, again, considering all the turnover that they've got after last year, starting at the most important position on the field at quarterback. So, yeah, I think 9-3 is their ceiling, and I wouldn't be shocked if they end up with an 8-4 record either. So definitely under the 9.5 that we started off talking about. Jess, there's a lot swirling around the Caitlin Clark WNBA situation right now, most of it negative. Do you buy or sell any publicity as good publicity for the WNBA right now?
No, because I don't think you want to start. I don't think you want to start conversations that started to pop up yesterday. So I'm just going to have to say
I guess
no.
that's true. Like, if we're going to go literally any, then you're right. Some of the stuff that came up yesterday, like that's like, it's just a completely different sort of conversation that started to be had. So any publicity, good public, I think in general, I will say this, WNBA talk is leading national TV and radio shows, right now. And like, do you remember that ever happening before? So from
No.
that aspect, it is good publicity for them. Now, again, pushing some of the stuff from yesterday aside, and I'm not going to even attempt to get into it. I'm not going to defend anything, anyone was talking about. But I will say, all these players and former players getting territorial, I guess I get it. The league's been around for almost 30 years at this point, and they're like, hey, we've always been good basketball, and there's always been physical basketball. So don't come tell us how we're supposed to be playing it. I can get sort of the get off my lawn, sort of attitude that some of these players have. But at the same time, the bottom line is, whether they like it or not, and whether they want to admit it or not, the Caitlin Clark phenomena is a thing, right? We've never seen anything like this before. And I don't think we'll probably ever see anything like this ever again, but they just don't know how to handle it right now because it is so unprecedented with everything that we're seeing around Caitlin Clark. But, there have been plenty of great players who have played in the WNBA before, from Rebecca Lobo to Tamika Catchings, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, obviously, Candace Parker, Katie Smith, Lisa Leslie, on and on and on and on. But none of them, and I mean none of them, have brought the level of attention to their game the way Caitlin Clark has. That's just the way it is. And, like there was never a phenomenon in the college game like we had with Caitlin Clark and leading Iowa to back-to-back national championship games, and what I don't think we need to hear is Angel Reese out here. Angel Reese is like, well, saying she's also the reason that people are watching women's basketball right now. Just, not just Caitlin Clark. And I mean, basically saying that, she just gives herself away. She's admitting what all these players don't want to admit.
Yeah, they're jealous.
That there's a huge level of pettiness and jealousy to this, right?
Right.
And I mean, that's like, again, Angel Reese just giving herself away. And, look at the attendance for any Caitlin Clark game, as well as the TV ratings. They say the complete opposite of what Angel Reese is trying to say, because more than twice as many people are going to a Caitlin Clark game as the other games in the league right now. The bottom line with this whole thing, about the whole physical play and everything else, some of Clark's teammates just have to step up. Like that's someone on that roster has to step up. There was an Irish forward back in the day named Crystal Irwin, and she played with Sherelle Allen, among other players back then. And I guarantee you this, if Sherelle Allen was getting bounced around the way Caitlin Clark is getting bounced around right now, Crystal Irwin wasn't going to be having any of that. Crystal Irwin, and I should say the late Crystal Irwin, rest her soul, she would not be standing for that. And someone on Caitlin Clark's team has to finally step up and say, we're not going to take that. She's our teammate and we've got her back. And it's just not going to happen this way. Like that's what's going to put an end to all this. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that happen so far.
Yeah. So I think ultimately it comes down to jealousy between, current, former, new WNBA players. But to me, you can't cry wolf, because all you've been doing is complaining about how you're not treated equally. And then finally, there is some life interjected or ejected or interjected, or what's the word? Ejected. No, because that means you're getting taken out.
Rewind this. What are you trying to say?
No, I'm trying to say that these players can't be upset because they've complained in the past about how they aren't treated equally. And Caitlin Clark has now entered the league and allowed you to be treated more equally, right? So it's which way do you want it? Do you not want Caitlin Clark, or do you want to go back to no chartered flights? Do you want to go to less pay? Do you want to go to, less ticket sales, etc.? And so there's a trade-off, right? And so I get it, the frustration, and it's not just Caitlin Clark, but Caitlin Clark is what has brought attention to your sport right now. So I do believe there has to be some sort of appreciation.
Right. Exactly right. And it's just insane how like around every corner this stuff has continued to happen. It started toward the end of the tournament, the Final Four, with Taurasi, with her caddy stuff and
well,
everything
it started before she
on.
even came into the league, and that's
right.
The disappointing part is you teed
and again
up
that's what gives
else.
them away. They can talk about this is a physical league, and we're always going to be physical with rookies, and it's like 95 feet up the floor, like you've always been like that. It's like, I don't know, man. She's getting the Caitlin Clark treatment right now, and to her credit, she's not the one out there complaining about it. She just like she might be trash talking out there on the court and everything else, but you haven't heard her, at least in the media. She's not complaining, and whining about she needs to start getting these calls and stuff like that. But someone's got to be the enforcer. Like, and like if I'm the Fever, I would just find someone who sign him off the street to come in and be your enforcer. Someone's got to do it. It's like Caitlin Clark is the future of the league, whether you like it or not. If you're playing in that league right now, that's just the way it is. All right, we will wrap it up with that. A lot of great stuff. Thanks to RJ Abatia from USCFootball.com, who came in and talked a little USC football with us at the start. Ryan Roberts, and of course Jesse as well. Thanks for being here today. We will wrap it up. I think Vincenzo is going to be in tomorrow. Jesse will be back on Thursday's show for a little wee in, wee out, as well as we roll on through this grinding old week here on IB Nation Sports Talk. Jess, I will talk to you later. Hit the like button before you leave. We do appreciate it, and we will talk to you mañana on IB Nation Sports Talk.